Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to be part of this visit study. And we are very happy to be part of it because it's a hybrid one. Means there are people there and we are online. That's very nice, and that's reconforting all this period where everything will happening online, and this is exactly the future as well of the mobility, and we will discuss about it in the presentation today. So thank you again, and I'm very happy also to be part of this visit study because it's about an interesting CBHE project, Erasmus CBHE project. Why? Because it's about internationalization, and this is the purpose of Erasmus Plus program. So thank you for inviting us. Thank you to the University Moulay Ismail for inviting us. I don't know, Aziza, do you want to say something at the beginning?
No, go ahead, Latifa. Just to thank the NEO Morocco for accepting the invitation and for all the follow-up made for the Moroccan universities to implement our CBHE projects.
Great, and we are very happy as well because this is kind of good communication that must exist between a national Erasmus office and a project, and also with the university. So I think this is a good practice that we start with. Today, I will try to be brief. So I articulated my presentation on 4 aspects. Quick reminder, what is ICM, International Credit Mobility, with given some insights about what's new in this new program 21-27. Then to present you the Icm Cycle as we today we work on it as Erasmus National Erasmus Office, and also to present briefly the support and the monitoring step, which is very important step in our relation as national office, and some challenges that we find out while we are monitoring the ICM implementation within the Moroccan universities, and also some. It's not only about Morocco, but I think it's common challenges between all the region. We are national offices, Erasmus offices. Our mission is to promote the program over all the different partners and stakeholders, students, higher education institutions, and other partners from industry, business, NGOs, etc. So, because as you know, Erasmus is about youth education and training. So we try to promote and to give information about the program to all these partners. Also, we have an important mission of coordination between the EU, the European Commission, and the EU delegation in our countries, for our case to Morocco, and also with the Ministry of Higher Education, which is very important, and we will see it because for ICM, for example, there is a lot of concerns, there is a lot of problematic that are connected with the ICM, for example, the credit system, the recognition of credits, the grades, etc., the accreditation for some capacity building projects. So it is very important that the national office had very connected and very good relationship with the MOHI, with the Ministry of Higher Education. And also we have a mission of supporting the project, different kind of projects, capacity building projects as today, and also the ICM projects, the Jean Monnet project, anyway, all the projects that receive today a funding from Erasmus Plus, and also all the supporting, monitoring, give birth to many reports to our different big stakeholders the Ministry of Higher Education and the EU, I mean here the European Commission, DGIC, but also for sure the CBH unit, I mean the IKEA. And also we have other missions, like creating synergies between the different stakeholders, between different projects, mobilizing the Erasmus community, and also coordinating the work of the higher education reform experts that are nominated by the Ministry of Higher Education, and that this group of experts in each country, we put them for sure in connection with other higher education experts from other countries, from Europe, and also from our region, South Mediterranean region. So that was briefly our mission. And we are talking today about the ICM, and the ICM is one of the pillars today of the program, Erasmus program, the program of European Union for training, education, and youth. As you know, we have two blocks, two pillars, cooperation and mobility of individuals. Here we will talk entirely about the mobility of individuals through the international credit mobility that supports the mobility of individuals enrolled or employed, means students or staff at higher education institutions from program countries and partner countries, and vice versa. Technically, and you should know it, we are talking about the KA171. This is very important, and we will talk a lot about the lexic of ICM and Erasmus, because Erasmus has a lexic that's as in internationalization, I could say, professionals, you need to know. So here we are talking about the KA171, former 107 in Erasmus 1420. And when we are talking, oh, I didn't expect this animation. And the first thing to know about this lexic is the distinction between program countries and partner countries, and the most, and also to know the different regions that constitute our the program, and to put our country in the right region. Why? Because when we will discuss about the funding, well, sometimes, not sometimes, but they depend from the region we belong to. So Morocco, for example, is a partner country. UK, this is one of the questions that we have more and more. UK now is a partner country, as Morocco, as Tunisia, and as others. What you know and what you should to know is that we are a privileged region. We belong to what we call the neighborhood. The EU neighborhood means that we are privileged in terms of funding. The South Mediterranean region, which is the region 3, this is important to know. We have from between 20 to 23% from the entire funding allocated to the region. We are funded by a specific instrument to neighborhood, for the neighborhood region. And from time to time, we could have what we call supplement funding or special funding, what we call the windows, and it depends on the orientation of the European Union. What about the South Mediterranean region? Because for me, it is very important as ICM professionals and mobility professionals to know today how much mobilities we do and what's the position, as we are first on the funding allocation. Without no surprise, we are in the first position with 44 mobilities. Those data belong to the 2015-2019, so it doesn't include what is done on 2020. Because as we will see, we have always a gap between the mobility awarded and the mobility done or realized. And Morocco, for example, Israel is the first country in terms of mobility done, and then Morocco, Jordan, and Egypt. And I think that the most, I don't have a very specific data on the top 5 countries, but the South, the European countries from the Mediterranean area are our historical and top 3, I think, countries with whom we do our mobilities in the region, I mean. So the first thing to do, I think, is to start to approach this lexic, this Erasmus lexic. There are a lot of specificities that you should know and understand: sending versus receiving organization, ingoing, outgoing, mobilities, national agencies and national Erasmus offices, etc. So the best thing to do, the first step, is to read Bible, I think, the Erasmus Plus program guide, available in different languages, and for sure it is well organized, because it's organized by action, and there you can find everything. I know it's very tough because it's 200, but national agencies and national Erasmus offices sometimes create fact sheets. So you could visit our website from each country, and you could find like fact sheets for every action. But please, it's always very interesting to read this program guide, because it's very interesting, and especially for professionals. I'm not talking about professors that wants to involve, but here I'm really talking with the professionals of ICM, people who are in charge of ICM. So ICM, if I want to briefly remind what is it, but combining with the new that we will find in 21-27, today we will have, and we could have, physical mobilities and the blended mobilities. Means that we could désormais we could combine virtual and physical mobilities, which was not possible before. And we have mobility for students. And in students today, we are distinguishing, it means on the application, we could say we want X mobility for students, and we want some for doctoral students, which was not the case before. So this is something new, and which is new also. The mobility for students is from 2 months to 12 months. Before it was from 3 months. So we give this shorter, the possibility to shorten the mobilities, which is very helpful, because one, and I forget to talk about it, the priorities of this new program is inclusion. So we'll talk more and more about inclusion. And inclusion means that sometimes we have some people that could not, students or staff, that could not go for a long period. So we give this opportunity today in terms of eligibility to shorter mobilities, and also to combine mobilities, virtual and physical. One, a mobility, student mobility could be a study period including traineeship and also traineeship. And I'm highlighting this kind of mobilities because till today we don't have, anyway in Morocco, but I'm sure also in other countries in the region, we are not yet, I could say we didn't succeed yet to implement the traineeship as it was conceived, because the idea here is to give the possibility for our students from both partner countries and program countries to have the mobility and to do the mobility in a non-research, non-higher education organization. It could be an NGO, it could be an enterprise, it could be a public authority, etc., which is a great, I think, opportunity for the students to do this traineeship in another country, but also in a business context or in an NGO context, etc. So this traineeship is available from 2018, and and as I said, it's still very timid. We could discuss about it later, but I think here, for example, as a professional of ICM, you should it should think about those traineeship because they are specific, because they need the involvement of, for example, enterprises, NGOs from the application step that we will talk about it. But this is very, very interesting. And I think that till now, from 2019, the 18, sorry, we didn't succeed yet to implement it as really we want. And the new thing is the doctoral mobility, 2 months to 12 months, or 5 days to 30 days. So this will be very specific. This was a demand formulated by different stakeholders, and the agency and the EU introduced this specific mobility tailored for doctoral needs today, and this is a new thing. And for these mobilities, they could be blended, virtual and physical, and also staff mobility, the classic one, 5 to 60 days, administrative or academic. Training mobility or teaching mobility means that you have the possibility to teach in a partner country or in a program country, depending from where you belong in, and also the possibility to combine training and teaching at the same time. Could discuss later if you want about the technicalities. As professionals of ICM, you need to be careful about also the eligibility, which is very important, because there are some, I think, when we're talking about introducing the non-academic partnership in the mobility, we need to know that it is possible for both students from both sides, partner and program countries, to, for example, to do a traineeship in non-academic, but we have the possibility also to welcome a non-academic, someone from the enterprises, to teach, but under some conditions. It is not possible for partner countries. It is only possible for program countries. So I think this table is very nice to have it, to be careful about the eligibility. And you could tell me, we are partner countries, we could not, we could just follow what the applicants, but it's for me a partnership. We need to be careful, both partner countries and program countries, even if the applicants for the ICM project is mainly the program country, but we need to be together. We need to do it as partners. So this is a good table. In terms of budget, for sure, mobility is about the scholarship, the funding of subsistence and travel costs for participants. But also you need to know as well that there are some organizational supports that are given for management and implementing the ICM in both partner countries and program countries. And sometimes you could negotiate as partner country with the program country. If sometimes you feel that you need, this is all about negotiation once again. And sometimes partner companies that don't know that these organizational support exists. It's also, once again, about when it needed, and especially to cover some specific exceptional costs for students. For example, I know that in Morocco, sometimes some students, let's take the case of University of Meknes, there is no consulate, there is no embassies there. So students must go to Rabat or to Casablanca to have a specific visa. And sometimes if we are caring about inclusion, we need to think about those supra and supplement costs that are needed. And those organizational supports could be used to face those and to help those participants to be included without fairly, I mean, on these mobility projects. But also, once again, it's about, it's a partnership. This is something that could be discussed. It's between 400 by participants to 230 by participants. And this is for the organizations. It's organizational support, and once again, it's all about negotiations. So don't don't go to your partners and saying, hey, we want those organizational supports, but because we will see that for the implementation and management, it's very heavy, and it's so heavy for the applicants, for the program countries. So it's a lot of work, and sometimes they need extra persons, other persons, to help them implementing and managing the ICM. What's new is the inclusion support that is possible today to ask for, to include, we'll talk a lot about inclusion, and inclusion, it's not only about health and also mental disabilities, something physically, but it could be also some participants from disadvantaged background. It could be also some other people who cannot follow their education properly for some reasons, for some social problems, for some family problems, etc. So inclusion, it's really an extended concept. It's not only about physical, and so you have to know that there is an inclusion support today that could fund some extra, and we could combine today organizational support with inclusion support to give more opportunity for some categories of participants to be part of this dynamic. And which is new also, it's exceptional costs, and it was this is today something that we are proud of because we were part of it, because the DGIAC asked us if there is, because in our monitoring always like reports some problems, guarantee, for example, financial guarantee that asks for our students when they go there for some housing and accommodation services, and the DGIAC asked us what kind of today of exceptional costs traveling. Sometimes it's easy to go from Casablanca to Paris, but how from Rashidia to give me another. I can't find a very small city in a European country, but to go to La Sapienza, for example, in Italy, it's very complicated from Morocco. So today those travel per diem and compensation are not sufficient. And today the new program gives the possibility for you and for the universities to give an extra funding for those issues. And this is something very nice. As shown on my outline, we have today an ICM cycle. When we are talking about ICM, it's a complicated and a long, I think, process that today, for me, started not only by the application phase, but for me, there is another, and they always include another step, very important step, which is the prospection. But you know that ICM today, the KA 171, is a competitive based selection. It means that there is it's a project, there is a call, and the applicant is the program country higher education institution, and there is an application that must be done with a quality assessment. So it's a long process, and once a project is selected, there is a phase of contractualization, which is very important in the management of ICM, and then we have this phase of implementation and reporting phase. So I think that this cycle must be really, we must really understand it to implement effectively the ICM. And a project could be between 24 to 36 months. We don't know yet if there will be, how we call it, if we will change this to make it one period, I think, because it was done for another mobility key action. But we don't have yet, for us, still the project duration is between 24 to 36 months. It means once you have an awarded, this is another word to know, an awarded mobility, you need to implement it within 24 to 36 months, depending on what you have put on your application. And if you go up to these 36 months, for example, you will lose those mobilities awarded. So, and this is one of the challenges that we are facing today, because sometimes, and even if it is, I could say, very strange, sometimes we forget about some awarded mobilities. They are somewhere in our tables, and we forget it and we lost it. This is something that we find out on our monitoring. So that's why we will talk about this information system, which is very important to follow and to monitor the mobilities awarded, to be sure that they will be done. So so for the implementation, we will have before the mobility, within the mobility, and after the mobility. There's a lot of activities that have to be done by the management team of ICM. But let's start by what we should have to manage this ICM cycle. First of all, the human resources. And I'm very happy because Nada talked about the international relations offices. This is very important for the visibility when we are talking about the prospection, and also for the management. And at least we need to have an ICM coordinator or ICM person in charge of managing, implementing, monitoring these ICM. And we need a very important coordination between the international relations offices, because those mobilities means that there are people who will go, others that will come, and there are a lot of issues, visa stuff, insurance stuff, services for accommodation, housing, a lot of issues. So we need a team today. And one of the challenges that we are facing in our region, I will talk about Morocco, but it's the same because we are coordinating with other national offices, is this point, because today we do not have international relations offices, permanent one, sustainable one. We have people in charge of cooperation, but for 5 years, and then it changed. And as we saw it, the most successful universities are those who succeeded to establish and to have a permanent ICM coordinator, because it is very important to have a sustainable action. And English today is a must. As Nada said, in our country, we are more francophone. You notice it on my accent. And English is not really a common, I could say, language in our countries. So today, the most important point as well and challenge is to find people who could speak English. And we are working a lot of it with Spanish universities. For example, so we do have some people who could speak Spanish. So I think that this profile, this intercultural profile today is needed in our universities. But how to motivate people like that, how to attract them to work in our public universities. Private universities do not have any problem to hire people with multicultural background, but in public universities it's not that easy. But in Morocco, for example, we have a reform in progress, and they try to give more possibility for universities today to give top up to people, to distinguish and to motivate people and attract young people to join the public universities with those multicultural profile for internationalization today. And we need also for this team to be trained, because ICM and Erasmus dynamic, as other programs dynamic, it has its lexic, it has its engineering, and it is very important to invest on training and to motivate, to retain people, because we have another problem as well, is that when people are trained, they are good, they have a good level, they quit because they find other good opportunities. So public universities have this problem of retaining good, I could say, competencies when it comes to managing international relations. Because as you know, and this is very important to say, when we have this international background, multiculturality, we increase our employability, and we increase our visibility, and we could see it with our students, for example, and also with the staff. For the management, it is very important as well to train them, because there is a lot of agreements to manage, reports, data as well, to collect, to analyze. So they need training, and it was a little bit surprising for us when we do our monitoring, our ICM monitoring, to find that some people working on ICM management, they never benefit from an ICM, a mobility. And for us, it's very strange. It's nonsense, because it could be a very nice tool to train to those resources when they go to other countries, program countries, so they could see how ICM today is managed, how we could prospect, and to deepen and to consolidate and to strengthen today the relationships with the program country partners. There are other issues, more technical, recognitions, the preparation for students and professors, and there are other special issues like the credit system, and also the service for participants, helping them for visa, helping them for housing, etc. So all these need a very trained and well-trained, human resources, but also specific infrastructure. So this is the second must to have when we are talking about ICM cycle management. And we need also some tools and management tools, centralized information system for universities because one of the big problems that we have and challenges is sometimes the presidency is not and here when we are talking about the presidency, we are talking about the legal representative, they are not informed about some mobilities done on the institution. And this is specific for universities because they have a lot of institutions, faculty of law, faculty of economics, etc. And this is a very big problem. So today, what we are working on with Moroccan universities is to build up a centralized information system so we could centralize all this information. And as I said, we could manage those data. We could also because when we came like 2 years ago, it was very helpful for our universities to give them some data about what we are doing, with whom today, how many doctorates go, PhD candidates, how many master students, etc. All this information, our universities did not have them till we came and we helped them to build up this information. And then we just realized that we do more or less with this university, more or less with this country, where to start. And this is very important when we are talking about strategy of internationalization, and to have data, to be able to analyze those data. And it starts on the ICM team, because they handle all these information, but unfortunately, they don't memorize it, they don't put it on tables, etc. So this is one of our major, I could say, challenges. The database of contacts, people go outgoing and ingoing, and this data is very, very important for to valorize today the mobility, to enlarge the impact of the mobility, to talk about the university and to give more visibility of the performance of the university. And unfortunately, those databases today are lacking, and we are working with the universities and take down that one of the major projects that we are doing today with the universities in Morocco. Monitoring tools, as I said, We help somehow with our monitoring because we have I will show it to you, we have a table very detailed. The first time it's not easy to fulfill it, but later on the universities just realized that it's very helpful because it gives them easily a picture about what they are doing, how they are doing it, etc., and where they could go and with who. And also this this team must develop some ICM tools, the special kits, welcoming, departure website corner. We are working with our universities on Erasmus website corner, fact sheets, institutional fact sheets, all those tools that are important when we are working with in an international, I could say, background. As I said, for me, the cycle started with prospection. Sometimes we forget this step. For me, this is the very important step because till now, what was done by our universities, and you will excuse me, I really adapt my presentation about our region and our universities, is that we, in most cases, I'm not telling that it's the case for all the universities, but in most cases, it's always the program country partner who contacts the partner country. And for me, it's not enough because we will stay always in the same scheme. And this is very important to develop the prospection. From our monitoring, for our question, is there any prospection activities? It's mostly no. So I think there is something to do, and especially because Europe and the European Union developed some tools like the EU Partner Search. And this is one of our mission, as well as national Erasmus offices, to organize some networking events, for example, give some, I could say some tools like a list of Erasmus accredited higher education lists, which is very nice because it gives you an exhaustive list of all the institutions today that are accredited by Erasmus, because this is the first step to identify the potential program country higher education partners. So this list is very nice, and you need to go and send, I could say, to different partners, hey, as it is simple, hey, we are interested by implementing ICM and we could do it today with you. Would you be interested? So this prospection is very, very important. And it could be also a professor or students initiation, especially PhD candidates. And here it is very important that we could have a clear strategy of internationalization, and the leadership must mobilize and motivate professors and students, especially PhD students, to help on prospecting new partners. And for all these, we need to develop tools for visibility. It's not normal, for example, for some of our universities, they have only websites in French. How could it be internationalized if we don't have English websites? Sometimes it's about details, but those details are important and they are missing today in our ICM management. So this is very important to develop those tools, as I said, and to be invested in this prospection step. Then at the application phase, technically, you need what we call the organization ID, and an organization ID is requested once we implement the ICM. But at the application phase, it's not necessary, but you could put it and help the applicants. And here, please, for the application phase, it is very important to be involved in the application. And I think this is important to be done by the ICM management team, because even if I don't want to, and this is my point of view that I really share with you, is for me, the ICM management today, we could not limit it only on technical tasks. There are technical tasks, but we need to involve them as well somehow with the international relation offices in this application phase. Why? To monitor, because they need to be from the beginning on this dynamic, so they could know what is happening in the institution. And this is very important to monitor and to avoid to lose some of those mobilities, as I said on the beginning. So the OED, the peak, all these are technical. This is the numbers and identification. This is very important. This is the starting point, I think, to know that if your organization has a peak, normally if you have already a CBHE project, it means that you have already a PIC, and an OED is something that is automatically given by the European Commission if you have a PIC, and this is very important to implement the ICM. And as I said, very important to not stay and let all the work done by the program country partner. It is very important to help them to answer those questions when it comes to the application. Why it is important and relevant for you, the quality, and why you could say that your cooperation agreements are qualitative. I will say later on some words on that. And very important and missing on a lot of our projects, even if they are funded, is the impact and dissemination. And as you know, we conducted for CBHE, and we will do it also for mobility, an impact study. And today it's the impact on individuals is very important, and we can't deny it, but we can't document it. That's the issue. Means that we say, yes, this is very nice and it's very helpful for students and they could increase their employability, but we don't know how. And because there is no documentation on that. But what was really difficult for us to assess is the impact on institution, the impact on the system, because unfortunately people go for the mobility, but once it's done, nothing, there is no giving back, there is nothing shared, there is nothing done in the institution, so we could valorize all these. So this impact and dissemination will be very important point, either for the application and also once the mobility is implemented. And we should, as partner countries, help the program country, because the program country needs to do a lot of reports. They have other monitoring types with the national agency. So we need to help them, feeding them with documents, with data, with testimonials. It could be a lot of things that we could do. And this is very important to say to the national agency and to the European Commission that all these money is doing great work for individuals, institutions, and the system and all the society. And then once we are selected, once the application is selected for funding, don't be surprised, because sometimes we could ask for 10 mobilities and we will have just one, because there are some considerations, some issues related to national agencies, I could say strategy, where the money has to go, etc. So there are some arbitration and balance. So sometimes we could be surprised that one of our best cooperation is not selected for mobility. Why? Because you need, and that's why the prospection is very important. You need to know that Erasmus Mobility is funding. It's to help the partner country higher education institution to internationalize. So be careful. It's not for to fund long-term relationships, and this is one of the mistakes that our higher education institutions do. And sometimes we have what we call the cutting. So our funding are cut, and we don't have any other possibility for our students. So be careful, recurrent, partnerships and funding. When the national agency find that you have already received like 3 years or 4 years of funding, that's too much, they will cut. And that's why you need to have other partners at the same country or maybe in other countries. And this is this is something also that we find out in our universities, that they are not very diversified when it comes to countries. Means on average we find that they have 10 partners from 10 countries, which is not enough. We are discussing about 33 countries, program countries. And within the country, we have sometimes just one institution or two institutions. You could have a lot of institutions at the same country, in the same country, and you could have all the countries that you want, because those projects are assessed bilaterally in the national agencies. So that's why prospection for me is a key element today on the ICM management, because we need to develop the ICM, because today it's too much centralized in the same and recurrent partnerships in the country, with the same countries, and also with the same sometimes institution. For the contractualization, I will not deepen it a lot, because once a project is selected, we need to contractualize. It means to sign interinstitutional agreements. And here, the most important thing to avoid any loss of those, or because there are some issues that could interrupt also on mobility, is that the interinstitutional agreements must be signed by a legal representative from both countries and both higher education institutions. This is very important, and believe me, sometimes it's the professor or the dean who, this is today something that we need to avoid. Why? Because we had some cases where the students came from his mobility or her mobility, and then we said, we were not informed about your departure. We are so sorry, we will not take your grades, because all the agreements were signed by the professor. So this is something that we need to be very careful, and we need to inform that, be careful, either the students and the professors, be careful. We need to be, it must be signed by the legal representative, and we need also to, in our case as a national office, we try to inform also about who must sign those documents. So this is very important point. And as I said, the quality implementation of the project is very important, but because it is a condition to succeed on the ICM project, and it could be, if we succeed in one project, it could be, it's very important, because in another application, in another institution, it could be used as arguments and evidences for our other applications with other partners and for other partnerships. So the quality implementation depends on those 3 steps. Before the mobility, there are a lot of things that you need to think about: the selection process, the call of applications, and the support that you need to give to the participants. And this is very important to check all these elements. The most important thing is for students to on all these steps, try to involve the staff members, because it is very important, because your students will go and they will back, and they will come back, and they will bring with them some grades to be recognized. So if there is no communication, no involvement of those staff members and department head, the deans, etc., it will be very hard for your students to be that his or her grades will be recognized. So this is very important. No selection fees. This is very important, because sometimes it could happen in some institutions. So you need to be clear. This is something that must be clear. No selection fees. What could I say as well? Call of application, you must document it. This is very, very important. And there are some good practices that your national Erasmus could share with you on how to write it. And you need at least to publish it publicly on 1 month deadline. There is some exceptions because you know that sometimes in a project, for some reasons, it doesn't work as we want with a partner. And the national agencies give us the possibility to use that money with another partner, either in another country or in the same country. And sometimes to don't lose those mobilities, we could just reaffect them to another country or another institution. So sometimes it is, we could have like tight deadlines, but those are exceptions. It must not be the regular way to do it. We need to give a long, at least 1 month deadline, and we need to document it, because when we came to monitor those ICM projects, the first thing that we ask for is please show us some of your calls, and sometimes we follow as well the calls of universities that we could relay in our website and social networks. And you must be clear on the criteria you are using, etc. So to be fair, clear, transparent way. Something that you need to ask your partner, program country partner, to give you is the letter of acceptance. Generally, we ask 2 months. It's very important because there are some visa issues. And you know that for more than 3 months, we need a special visa. We call it the national visa. And for that national visa, there is some security check, and it takes time. So ask your partner always to send you the letter of acceptance at least 2 months. And this is very important point to highlight is the planification. Alors, the planification is a big problem. Why? Because if we don't know the projects that were submitted, it will be very and then selected, it will be very difficult to planify. So that's why, and to plan. So that's why we need a good communication with our partner. Once the selection is done, when the results are because we send you as national Erasmus office, we send you a message saying that the selection is done, the results are available at national agencies, but we don't have all the results at national Erasmus. You must say a message to your partner saying, hey, what about our project? And then prepare your table with all the projects and then monitor and follow those informations. So we could not, ideally, the best thing is to have for a semester or for a year, a table with all the potential mobilities that must be done. But on the reality is different because sometimes the communication is not really established. Don't wait till the program country contacts you, because they are managing this with European countries, but also with the countries around the world. So it's a huge work for them. So as a partner country, we need to ask them, hey, on July, what about our project? Do you have any information? We could help because sometimes we have this information, we share it with you, but it's something that you need to ask for from your partners so you could plan your ICM, your mobilities. And for sure, then we have the learning agreement and the Erasmus Plus student charter to give to the participants. And this is very important to do it before the mobility, because the students need to be aware about what he or she must do within his or her mobility. And also for the staff, we have the mobility agreement to sign. This is the contractualization that must be done, and you need to have a copy of those agreements. This is very important to have it, and for us then, and also for the program country to have those those agreements. So be very careful, because this is an obligation. It's compulsory to have those. During the mobility, what happens is that the students is completely, fully given to the receiving organization to manage him, to follow him. No, we need to maintain the contact as possible with our students, with our professor. We need also to coordinate with the Erasmus coordinator of the receiving organization. This is very important. It could be obvious for you, but from our practical, from our monitorings, etc., we find out that this communication is sometimes somehow, because there is a lot of things to do, and this communication is not as we want it, and sometimes the students could interrupt his or her mobility period, and this is very, very sometimes dramatic, because he or she must refund the money. So we need to be in a constant contact with the students as we could, and to support them as sending or receiving. So that's why it is very important to have a team. And that's today a big challenge in our public universities, because it's not easy, as I said, to have those human resources, but it is very important. We could not go further if we don't have these human resources to follow, to monitor, to support participants before, during, and after. And also to monitor during the mobility, to be sure that everything is going on, everything is perfectly done, and there is no specific problems. And once again, receiving and sending organization. We could also give additional support for students, as I said, from disadvantaged background and for special needs. Sometimes the selection could give, we could end the selection, select someone with specific conditions. At that time, we could tailored the support. It could be financial support, it could more assistance, personal assistance, etc. So it's du cas par cas. So we have to be aware about who will go and what are his or her condition, and be very careful about the interruption, early termination, or even the need of an extension of the mobility. It is possible to interrupt mobility, but for some reasons, force majeure, etc. And we could extend, but you need to know those conditions. So that's why it is very important to have a good communication with the Erasmus coordinator, but also with the students, and to explain them before they go. That's why the student charter is very important, Student Erasmus Plus charter, to know exactly what are their obligations, because sometimes students just, for them, well, I could go and then I could come. We have some bad experiences, and especially for the COVID period. And this is the monitoring tool, mobility monitoring tool that I told you about. We could send it to you by Excel, but I think it's very nice, it's very important. So it is very important as managing the ICM to encode some information in this table on as we are performing and executing the mobility project, not do it at the final, at the end. We need to do it in progress. Once the project is selected, there is a part for the project, and there is a part for the people and the participants. And it is very important to do it systematically, because it's a very useful, as I said, tool, because it will give you an overview about what is done, how, and particularly as we will have the names, the email, etc. You could contact those participants. They could help you to find out new partnerships, especially for professors. They could help for some events, for impact valorization, etc. So this is very important, this mobility monitoring tool to implement in your institution. After the mobility, you will deal with the problem of credit recognition. So the transcripts of records, you will receive it from the receiving organization. Sometimes, and if you are the receiving organization, you need either to give it to your students or give it directly to the sending organization. This is very important, because I said it's international credit mobility. So there are credits, and those credits must be recognized once the students will come home. So those credit recognitions we have in our countries, as we haven't implemented yet the credit system. We have what we call the conversion table. So you could ask your office about this table, and we have some good practices on how. It's about pedagogy, and there is pedagogical alignments that must be respected. And that's why from the beginning, the staff members, the departments, the faculty must be involved in the mobility to avoid any of those recognition problems. So that's why we insist a lot. We have thanks God, we always find solutions, but sometimes it's tough for students. Voila. So we need to involve staff members since the beginning of all this mobility. You have to know that there is a report and a survey of participants that you need to ask for. The national agency actually send automatic surveys, but what we are doing now with our Moroccan universities is to implement our survey as well, because sometimes we don't have access to this information. So it is very useful to have your proper survey, for example, one very small survey about some intercultural aspects that you wanted to highlight. It is very useful for the impact as well. In our case in Morocco, we have something that we think about since 2 years ago. We didn't implement it yet, but it's in progress about those surveys. But reports are compulsory. You need to have a copy of the report from the students and also from the staff. But the reality is, when we ask for those reports, we don't find them. So please be careful, because as I said, the program country partner needs those elements, sometimes for their monitoring, for their audits, etc. So we need to help them, giving them all these information. They could, as the receiving countries, they have those reports, but sometimes the partner countries, they don't have it, and for me it's not normal. We need to have those reports as well. We need to have double copy. So please, this is something also important that we miss. And sometimes we could have and there is also a complementary service specifically on recognition, because it's a great matter and a great issue when it comes to mobility. We must do things about dissemination, sustainability, valorization, impact. Some universities, they have good practices on that. Others, they don't do nothing. There is no follow-up. We don't know finally where is the impact of these mobility. So today, this is a big challenge, is those impact, dissemination, sustainability, and valorization today of all these mobility. And this is not only about the implementation and management ICM team, but here it's more strategic. But at the same time, it's very important, because we could collect some data while we are implementing the mobility. And after the mobility, we need also to compare the awarded mobility and planned mobility with the done mobilities to see if there is any lost mobilities or not. So that's why the information system is very important. This table that I give you is very important. The challenge is to fill it and to have the information to fill it, this table. But I think if there is something that we need urgently to do, is to be very, very picky with this to fill this table. And I will finish by the support, because the national Erasmus offices are here as well to share good practices that we find out in universities. And there are some good practices that we find out when it comes to well, actually the table is something that we developed because we use it in the monitoring, and now we are working with the universities to systematically fill that table. And voila, so, and why not to centralize it? Because this is very important to have something also centralized at the level of the university, but also at the national level. So this is most hard, but this is our mission as National Erasmus Plus Office. We monitor, as we said, the ICM project. So we do it by higher education institution, not our project. We do it by higher education institution, and we see all the ICM implementation, not only one project. This is very important because it gives us precise information about how all this is implemented and done, and also to report some problems, specific problems to the ministry, specific problems to national agency, specific problems to European Commission, and to find and to give some solutions and recommendations. And today, on challenges and recommendation, I could say, as Nada said, we need a vision, we need a strategy, we need to be clear about what today the strategy, our internationalization strategy. And today this is something, and we need a dedicated human resources, an ICM team, and international relations offices. We need an information system centralized at the level of university, but also at the national level. We need also some participant services, especially for to welcome students, but also for the students' departure, to prepare them. This is something that exists in program countries, but missing in the partner countries. I think your project could help a lot on these participant services that we could implement for ongoing and outgoing, ingoing and outgoing mobilities. We need a huge work on dissemination, valorization, impact, to document, to organize events, seminars about the new pedagogic tools. For example, and the staff mobility, in our monitoring, we just realized that the professor or the staff went on mobility, but nothing is done later. And this is very good, be good on dissemination if there is nothing organized. I think we could do a lot of things. There are today some good practices like International Staff Week, some specific events that are organized, some specific, I could say, tools developed. We are working with universities to develop national tools, so we will not just lose our time. Well, if we could do one kit, the same one, but personalized. So we are trying to put some synergies like that. For the impact, the most problematic is to document the impact, to have something very scientific impact, and it is related to that information system to put and to have to follow up students, to have surveys within, after some years after the mobility, to see finally what was the impact, the immediate impact, but the long-term impact of the mobility on individuals, institutions, and this whole system. So this triptych is very important for Erasmus Plus, and today we are not able yet to document it. It's more declarative, I think. And to connect more and more ICM with other Erasmus Plus actions. For example, we are always surprised that we find out that there is a CBHE project with different partners from program countries and partner countries, but there is no ICM project. That's for us very, very surprising, and is a big. So think about to connect the ICM with other Erasmus Plus actions, with other internationalization tools, programs, and projects. And sorry, I was long, but there are a lot of things to say about this issue, and there is a lot of documentation as well that was developed by the European Commission, the national agencies, the national offices. I select for you some of these, and for sure I will give you this presentation. Thank you for your patience and voila, it's to you. I'm so sorry, I'm always like out of time.